Bad behavior by police during the 2020 George Floyd protests in Denver is going to cost the city a chunk of change after a jury sides with protesters. Incarceration won't stop drug addiction, and with fentanyl deaths on the rise, jail leaders are taking precautions too. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert wants you to know about some of her policies that became law, even after she voted against them. A happy pandemic milestone at a local hospital.
On our reservation, there's very few opportunities, and basketball is a way for them to further their education.
And we end your Friday with good news from the basketball court. The bad news for you, Kyle's out today. I'm Steve Steger. This is Next. Things are changing on the front lines of the opioid crisis. We're seeing it through a big group working on the front lines, our jails. They had to adapt because of the number of people overdosing in custody, especially with fentanyl being pumped through our state. Here's Anusha Roy.
You pull out Naloxone when someone is having an opioid overdose to save their life. And it's being used by Denver sheriff deputies outside the jail regularly. But the drugs are also making it inside as well.
Whether that's an intake for those folks who are first coming into our custody off the street or in our housing areas.
Last year, Naloxone was used 12 times inside Denver jail facilities. This year already, it's been used 13.
It's not, uncommon for contraband to exist in our facilities, and that does occur. And although we take lots of steps to keep any contraband outside the facility, occasionally those things do happen.
It means staff is getting additional training, especially because of fentanyl. And they've already been using PPE to protect themselves.
Could be an unknown substance, maybe, that we find on a search of someone who's in custody who comes into the intake area.
Extremely high risk would be our booking area.
In Arapahoe County, they're making sure that Narcan is next to every AED kit in patrol cars and available throughout their entire facility as they order more and more to keep up with demand.
So they do leave with that dose of Narcan.
We're including in here is fentanyl test strips.
Now the Denver jail is trying to meet people in the in-between phase when leaving their jail.
Roll this program out by April 11th.
By giving them a kit with naloxone, fentanyl test strips, and info on treatment options and a number to call to replenish their Narcan supply.
The debate and conversation continues about, is this a right environment for that to happen? Well, quite frankly, given the current circumstances, and not addressing those circumstances, but just what we're faced with today, I do believe we have a responsibility to provide those services.
Yeah, and that debate is far from over. Both of the facilities we heard from today said that they do have treatment going on inside, but the chief in Denver said those fentanyl strips are really meeting people in the middle because they know some people are going to leave their jail and they're going to continue using drugs or be around people who are using drugs. And the hope is that those fentanyl testing strips will help someone live maybe one more day, maybe a few more days as they are deciding, do they want to continue using drugs or do they want to pursue treatment?
It's interesting to think about how much this conversation has evolved. We've been talking about this here for years, but in the beginning, it was just a few people who were carrying this around. Now it's everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that is really what struck me today when I was talking to the different jails was, you're right, over the years, we were hearing naloxone needs to be out in the public, but we were hearing it from advocates dedicated to this very issue, from doctors who were treating, patients coming in. But now we're seeing it that's been in jails for years. We're seeing the maternity floor at Swedish providing it for new moms. We're seeing schools buying into it. I mean, it's been a long process, but we are starting to see kind of the philosophy and the chatter around this changing in Colorado.
And you've been talking about it along the way. Anusha Roy, thank you. A jury awarded $14 million to a dozen people who were sprayed with tear gas and shot with pepper balls by Denver police during the protests in this city in 2020. 12 protesters brought that federal case against Denver, claiming their civil rights were violated during the protests after the murder of George Floyd. They alleged that Denver police used excessive force in their response to what they called peaceful protests. Today, a jury agreed with that. Lawyers for the city had argued that the violence and destruction caused by protesters required a response. They said that dozens of officers were injured by rocks and other things that were thrown at them. The EPA is telling Colorado's Department of Public Health and Environment that it needs to rework its renewal permit for the Suncor Refinery in Commerce City. The EPA sent a letter to CDPHE saying it objects to a portion of the Clean Air Act Title V renewal permit for that plant. The specific objection is over the department exempting 3 flaring sources at the plant from compliance assurance monitoring. The EPA wants them to go back and make sure that they should be exempt from air monitoring requirements. The EPA is also telling the department it needs to do more public outreach and engagement with the community about this permit renewal. The EPA says that this letter doesn't affect the current operation of the refinery, does not mean the permit is denied. CDPHE will have 90 days to make revisions, provide opportunity for public review and comment, and then submit a new proposed permit. Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is taking a victory lap, claiming 9 of her legislative priorities were signed into law. Problem is, the Congresswoman from Colorado's Western Slope voted against the bill that contained those priorities. Boebert's office sent out a press release naming 9 legislative wins that she's had lately. Among them, securing $1.7 billion in funding for community health centers, $2.6 billion for NASA and Colorado space programs, $48 million to manage beetle kill infestations. Now, all of these things were included in the annual appropriations bill passed by Congress at the beginning of the month, signed by the president in mid-March. And yes, Boebert's office included the letters the Congresswoman sent to members of the Appropriations Committee asking that these items be included in an appropriations bill. But when that appropriations bill came up for a vote, Boebert was a no vote. We reached out to her office today to ask why the Congresswoman is claiming credit for something she voted against. We haven't heard back yet. Well, how is this for good news on a Friday? Rose Medical Center says it currently has 0 COVID patients inside the hospital's intensive care unit. This morning, Rose took its last patient off of isolation. First time that there hasn't been a COVID patient in the ICU there since 2020. Hospital says it has seen a gradual decline in patients over the last few months leading up to today. Staff there say, or they credit vaccinations with helping work our way toward herd immunity. They reflected on the long road to get there.
I think when things started and we were in the thick of it in March and April of 2020, it was hard for most of us to see when this was going to end. I think it was really hard when we saw wave 1 come down and we're like, yes, we did it, and then wave 2 comes back. I do think and hope that one day we're going to look back and people are not going to remember this. I think when we get old, we're gonna say, why were we wearing masks in all those pictures? So we'll see what happens. But for the short term, we're all going to remember this and look back at it, and I think we learned a ton.
Gosh, I sure hope so. Now, staff see this as a break, but they know they can't get complacent. So they say they'll continue to do the things to keep the virus at bay, like washing those hands, washing equipment regularly, and social distancing. Well, a lot of you have reached out asking if there's a way to help individual Coloradans struggling with gas prices. Your Word of Thanks Microgiving campaign this week supports There With Care, a nonprofit that helps families with the surge of expenses that come with having a seriously sick child, including the need for gas to get them back and forth from appointments. Here's Kyle with an update on how much money you've raised so far.
At more than 20 hospitals around Colorado, when parents get the life-changing news that their child is seriously ill, the nonprofit There With Care steps in with wraparound services from the family. Everything from gas carts for the commutes to and from treatment to grocery deliveries and cleaning supplies. If one parent has to take off of work, they'll even help with the rent. And so far this week, you've raised nearly $15,000 to help them expand their work across the state. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to join me in giving. Thank you so much for allowing There With Care to do more for parents and families facing challenging circumstances across Colorado.
The Medal of Honor Museum that could have come to Colorado broke ground today. Spoiler alert, it's not in Colorado. The man behind Bishop's Castle gets his monument in the spotlight thanks to a college student from Colorado. And we end this Friday like we end all Fridays.
My good news is I was able to get my basketball team here to Denver to play in the All-West Classic.
With a good news buzzer beater.
What up, I'm Lil Mike, I'm Footy Bone, and our good news is...
Next. Hoping the moose would eat the next there. Hey, you remember that Medal of Honor Museum that was supposed to be built in Colorado? Well, the groundbreaking happened today, but in Texas. The museum's going to be built in Arlington. President George W. Bush was at today's groundbreaking ceremony. Denver and Arlington were named the two finalists for the museum back in 2019. Denver seemed like a natural fit between the two locations since so many Texans visit Colorado every year anyway, but Arlington beat us out. The Medal of Honor is considered the nation's highest and most prestigious military decoration. It's been presented to more than 3,500 military service members since the medal was first presented in 1863. Plans for the museum include highlighting the inspiring stories of Medal of Honor recipients while shedding some light on the wars in which they fought and the ideas the awards represent. Mother, let me upgrade ya. I hope I did that right. The Mother Cabrini Shrine is getting a facelift to the tune of nearly $5 million. According to our partners at the Denver Business Journal, the Retreat and Pilgrimage Center in Golden has been hard at work making $4.8 million worth of improvements. Frances Cabrini was an Italian Catholic missionary who started an orphanage in Denver. She purchased the land where the shrine is now in 1909 to be used as a summer camp for the kids. The nonprofit that runs it now raised almost all the money for improvements during the pandemic with the idea of expanding the existing chapel, gift shop, and visitors cafe. The chapels especially needed some updates, and the operators say the building is over 50 years old and not built for how it's used today. The updates will not touch the chapel's stained glass mosaic featuring the life of Mother Cabrini. There are also currently no updates planned for the tall statue of Jesus that can be seen from I-70.
Nice way to end the week with sunshine and 60s today. Guess what? We go warmer tomorrow. Headed for record territory as high pressure pushes the storm track to the north. Only a few high clouds coming in to northeastern Colorado, and the temperature trend is something else. We'll bottom out in the low 40s tonight. We'll look for highs in the mid 70s tomorrow. Could break a record on Sunday, even with increased cloud cover. Warm on Monday, cooler Tuesday with a chance of rain, possibly mixing with snow on Wednesday morning. Enjoy your weekend.
It's Friday, and our weekly Friday tradition is sharing your good news. This week, hundreds of kids from around the country are in Colorado for a very special basketball tournament. Our Tom Cole headed out to the Gold Crown Fieldhouse in Lakewood to pass them the rock and ask them our favorite Friday question. What's your good news?
We have about 100 teams. 13 states, 36 tribes from 34 reservations. It's the largest Native American basketball tournament in North America.
My name is Shaden Rivera. I'm from Anadarko, Oklahoma, and I'm representing Apache tribe. My good news is I get to stay out of school for 2 days.
My name is Kaylin Bronaugh, and I'm from Carnegie, Oklahoma, and I'm representing the Kiowa tribe. My good news is that I came up here with a good team and girls that I want to get closer with.
What up, I'm Lil Mike, and I'm Footy Bone, and our good news is...
My good news is that I got snacks and that my brother won.
We're back to traveling, booking shows, and doing all that, making new music.
My name is Dwayne Ghostdog. I'm from Pine Ridge, South Dakota, and I represent the Oglala Lakota tribe. My good news is I was able to get my basketball team here to Denver to play in the All-West Classic. On our reservation, there's very few opportunities, and basketball is a way for them to further their education, keep them on the right track.
My good news is I'm playing in the tournament, representing my tribe and my people.
It feels really special and honored that we get to represent our tribe.
My good news is that I get to come out here to Denver and play basketball and represent my family and my tribe.
My good news is that I get to come here to Denver because it's my first time being in Denver, so yeah, I'm glad I get to experience this. That's my good news.
A movie about castles and dragons, but it's no fantasy.
It's just pretty remarkable and quite a unique story that no one has really kind of been able to highlight as well, or really go into depth about his story.
A college student from Colorado makes a documentary about a southern Colorado landmark and the guy who built it, and it earned him some much-deserved recognition. Next. Go Avs. A Colorado filmmaker is being recognized for his work on a documentary about the man behind the Bishop Castle. That's the castle in southern Colorado that features a dragon. Tristan Owen co-directed a documentary about the landmark in Rye. Our Brian Wendland spoke with him about the film and its one-of-a-kind subject.
I've heard the developments all my life growing up, and it's just pretty remarkable.
Growing up in Pueblo, Tristan Owen was never too far from the Bishop Castle.
My grandparents had a cabin out in Rye, and over the summers, when I was around 10 to 15, my brothers and I would go visit them, and we would sort of see the progress that Jim made over the years.
It really is.
Jim Bishop's 15 years old. He spent $450.
Now a junior at Florida State University, he's being recognized by the American Society of Cinematographers and the Television Academy's College Television Awards for his documentary on the man behind the castle, Jim Bishop.
And I grew up filming in the mountains, and that's initially how this whole passion was ignited for me.
I don't think work would hurt me a bit.
Tristan's goal with The Castle Builder was to show Jim Bishop's two sides. The strong persona castle visitors know, but also...
He is a compassionate man. He really is. And it also really exposes this grit that he has and this determination.
He says Jim's grit rubbed off. Tristan only had the help of co-director Thomas McDonald and sound designer Javier Barranco, and they only had 6 days to shoot the documentary.
If I'm going to be able to tell this story, I need to make sure that I have the determination to be able to get it all the way through and be able to tell it as best as I could.
The film will be streaming on YouTube March 27th. And even more than the recognition he's receiving for it, Tristan hopes Jim Bishop shines through.
It's truly special, and I do hope that we did Jim's story justice in being able to make sure that he does get the recognition that he deserves for creating such a remarkable castle, really.
For Next, I'm Brian Wendland.
Once it's streaming, you can find The Castle Builder on its own YouTube page. Tristan says his next documentary will focus on Colorado search and rescue teams. He wants to get started on that when he graduates from Florida State. It's a sign that sometimes irony is driving right past us, off the road and over the curb. That plus your feedback next. It's a sign that maybe always hiring safe drivers may not be necessarily accurate. David was in Aspen last week when a truck went through a roundabout, over the curb, and then into the bushes. The message on the back of the truck says, always hiring safe drivers, and then lists a phone number. So David says in the driver's defense, the roads were pretty slick that day, but the irony was too good not to pass up, so he took this photo. And you should be like David. If you see something out of the ordinary like this that makes you laugh, snap a picture of it, send it to us at next@9news.com. You can also tweet it to us using the hashtag HeyNext. Finish with your feedback tonight. Maggie writes in to say it's nice to see Steve's face, which, by the way, with the beard, that's not feedback I get all the time. And Ann wrote in wondering where you can go to get Narcan. Denver will send it to you for free. You should check with your insurance company as well. We'll put all the information up on 9news.com.